I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning today, and I was surprised how many people still were texting in the WeAreDevelopers app. We are still at the after party. So to these guys, good morning. I'm going to talk about why software enables the energy revolution. And you have to consider that each and every revolution always starts with an idea. And we are lucky enough to have contact to one who has an amazing idea and who's working with us to enable a totally new way of traveling. And I'm going to show you a brief clip about a man who wants to revolutionize traveling.
A human dream, powered by solar energy, to the edge of space. Our planet, so fragile. Join us.
So, why software enables the energy revolution? Revolution can be considered as the idea of someone very specific or of a group. I'm going to show you in the next 25 minutes how industrial revolution actually happens and why. Why will it happen in regards of energy, and how you are already part of the energy revolution. The Industrial Revolution, as we knew it a couple of years ago, was, for example, the over-the-top threat. So for telecommunication providers like an MNO, the over-the-top threat was one of the huge issues. They had to reconsider the whole business case. We had the telecommunication operators were reduced just to an infrastructure provider and not a service operator anymore. And they realized that based on the infrastructure, you cannot generate enough revenues, but with the services on top of it. We would get new vendors, new service providers like Spotify, like Netflix, Skype. One of the biggest problems for the network operators was, and still is WhatsApp, actually cannibalizing the whole SMS business from the telco operators by putting it online with WhatsApp. The current industrial revolution is very much based on a disruptive approach. Everybody knows about the idea about you should have a startup that goes into a disruptive approach of a current business or a business case, so you can revolutionize the whole industry. From that point of view, you have to consider that mostly these new service vendors are coming from outside the industry. And they're very focused on one specific aspect of the whole business case and business chain. And one of the most well-known revolutionaries are Uber, Airbnb, and Alibaba. The interesting fact is that Uber is one of the biggest taxi operators globally that don't own a single car. Airbnb is the biggest accommodation provider without owning one single room. And Alibaba is the biggest platform for e-commerce without owning one single storage. So that is a new approach, that is a new idea. They're all coming from outside the industry, and they have one focus to maximize their business within the new industry. The future industry revolution are going to be considered always out-of-the-box thinking. We have one of the well-known revolutionaries that I'm going to talk to later is one of these out-of-the-box thinking. If someone tells you it cannot be done, you should think of the fact that if it cannot be done, maybe they just were too lazy or they didn't have the right approach or idea about how it could be done. The whole revolution will take place in a very technology-driven approach, and it is always going to be focused on the community itself. For example, we have a company called Sonnen. You might not know them, but they're very huge in Germany. They're providing a very unique approach for alternative energy. You would be able to trade energy from your home with other community members. And Bitcoin, well, I guess that the blockchain is very well known in this audience. The energy revolution, as we see it, you have to consider that people were created in a world with energy, because actually energy cannot be created, energy can only be transformed. That means that we came in touch with the first energy, that was fire. We utilized it, we used it for our own approach, and we came to the fact that we created, for example, cars. Who knows when the first electric car was actually introduced? 1832 or 28, considers who you're asking for. So, right now we are in an area and age where we consume a lot of energy. And this energy is going to be consumed not only by people, but by machines as well. And that creates the situation that we have to consider being in a closed environment, our world, we have only limited access to that power. So currently we are in the energy revolution to become more and more renewable energy consumers, like photovoltaic, like solar, water. And who knows, sooner or later someone might come up with a totally new idea how to harvest energy. From our point of view, energy is the new telecommunication industry. We have renewable energy that is extremely cheap and highly available, considered or compared to the years before. Everybody has access to that kind of power. Austria is considered to be a green country. That means each and every participant in the energy industry in Austria has access to clean and green energy. A very famous brand was introduced a couple of years ago, and they had this disruptive approach for the car industry. They introduced an e-car in a way that everybody was told cannot be happen. They introduced the Model S, then they introduced the Model X. They're about to introduce the Model 3, potentially maybe. But his approach is that I can do something that I have an idea about, and it can be done if I just work on it. And this new technology for storages as well, like the battery from Tesla, will prove everybody in the right way. So if you consider energy as the new telecommunication, how you will generate revenue. And that is the part where all the developers in this audience will be an effective part of it, because you will not create revenue out of infrastructure. Infrastructure is going to be a commodity. You have to pay for it, a flat fee, and that's it. You will create revenue out of services. Services out of the energy environment and products based on energy. So what are the line of codes for the energy revolution? We are already connected. That is one fact that maybe some people know, maybe not. The interesting thing is, if everybody would switch off their vacuums right away, right now, all at once, or when everybody takes a shower at once, or if everybody gets an e-car and tries to charge it at the same time, what would happen? A global blackout. Because actually the current network cannot handle that kind of peak, that kind of energy consumption, and that is where we can find solutions and workarounds that are actually revolutionary. If you don't believe that this is actually happening, who realized a glitch in his clock recently? In his kitchen. There was a discussion between two countries in Europe, and they had a problem with their power generation. And that ended up in quite a huge glitch in the energy network. So the frequency within the network changed. And the interesting fact is that the clocks that we use in our kitchen are based on the frequency of the network that it creates that power from. That happened 2 months ago. So although we live in the 20th century, we live in an age where we think that that cannot happen. We live in Europe, and still we are affected by a situation that we think would never happen. So, what do you think, what kind of project I'm talking about if I talk about these kind of headlines? IoT Hub, Azure, OPC UA, C#, PostgreSQL, an edge device, Node.js, MQTT, Angular, .NET, Cloud. That sounds very, very IT. It doesn't sound any energy. But the funny fact is, it is for a storage. No IT, just a storage to store energy. We are working on different projects and different corporations with universities, with other companies, with other vendors. And we came up with, so we realized a lot of topics that are very close to IT are the main urge and pain point in the energy industry. Blockchain. If you have a lot of IT devices, if you have a lot of IoT, southbound connected gadgets, then you have to have a way to identify them, that specifically and identify each and every participant in the cloud or in the energy environment. If it comes to modeling, if it comes to strategic planning, cloud computing is the only way how you can handle the amount of data, how you can handle the amount of CPU power that you need. So cloud computing, doesn't matter which vendor it is a huge topic within the energy industry. And the digital twin. We realized that due to the high amount and the regulations that we are working with, consider a very safe and secure way to test and remotely adjust certain situations, and that is done by the digital twin. So energy is actually IT related and a huge topic within the IT. How does software actually enables the energy revolution? To make it more obvious, currently we are in this stage. We have batteries, we have cars, and we have power plants. They are kind of connected, but not in a way that the current situation would require it. With software, that could change. With software, we would be able to harvest renewable energy. We would be able to distribute it smartly and evenly where it is required. We store it when needed, when it is cheap to produce energy, and we would distribute stored energy if it's going to be expensive or not even able to generate energy. And on top of it, we would have applications that could utilize that kind of smartness or cloud or any kind of environment to find different business cases. The idea is that together, that means IT, energy, that means infrastructure providers, that means any kind of partner with a different approach, like banks, infrastructure providers, like insurance companies. When we all work together, then in the end, it's not going to be only IT, but it's going to be that kind of cloud. There's not going to be a difference between .NET and real-time. It's going to be peak shaving and edge device. It's going to be primary, secondary energy. It's going to be one discussion that we're going to have if it comes to the future, how we see it right now in a smart energy environment. So, another question, how many people in the world, percentage, have access to permanent energy? Any figure? 50%. We don't have access to permanent energy? So it's less than 35%. And with that approach, if we are able to find a solution that stores the energy when we produce it, like wind parks in the Northern Sea produces energy when there is wind, but we cannot consume that much. So if we are able to store it wisely and smartly, then we can put all the energy to a way that we can distribute it to the places where they don't have energy. Or we are involved in a project in the Middle East where they only have energy for 4 hours a day, nothing more. And they have to pay a lot of money for that energy. So the idea is that they're going to get a photovoltaic, they're going to get a storage, and then they would have coverage for more than 24 hours. And it doesn't cost anything more than the electricity they're already paying for. So these are ideas that we need IT, we need this kind of approach where we can merge software development and the energy environment. And then we have a solution that will work for everybody and will work not only in Europe or in the European Union or in Asia, in America, but globally. Because actually energy is not a problem of Europe, energy is a problem in the world. And as I told you before, the idea is that any idea you have, doesn't matter if it's an energy environment, doesn't matter if it's going to be totally different. If you have one idea, then you should think of the fact that this idea can be a revolution as well. And one of our projects we did was the idea of another man that you might know, and his idea was, back in the days he purchased his dream car. It was the car he ever wanted, but he couldn't get the car due to regulations. But he insisted, he took all the power that he had, and finally he got the car. Now he changed his mindset, and he doesn't want the car anymore because it's a fuel engine that he doesn't like and that he's tried to replace it with an electric engine. He was told by each and every company in the world, it cannot be done. Until he met us. So everybody knows the Hummer H1 from Schwarzenegger. He bought it, he was the first and only person at that time that was allowed to buy it as a private person. After that, Hummer realized it is a business case and created the H2 and H3. Lucky us, it didn't work out, because actually the consumption is horror. But we took the H1 and electrified it.
Thank you very much to Kreisel. You made a so long unremembered dream of mine a reality. Everyone told me that I cannot turn my Hummer, one of my favorite cars, I cannot turn it electric. The technology does not exist. But then you came and you said you can do it. And you've proven it. I just drove in here with my Hummer for the first time with an electric engine. This car now is full electric. The past, the engine of the past, the gas guzzling engine is gone. And the engine of the future, which is the electric engine, is now inside this Hummer.
So as you can see, if you have one idea, one dream, and you push it to the limit and you try everything and try to be honest to yourself, you can achieve whatever you want and whatever you can think of, and even like Elon Musk did with Tesla or the Boring Company or SpaceX, if you achieve it, you can make it, and you can revolutionize even industries. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Now I want this. I want all of that. Okay, yeah, the clock case. I know my friends from Serbia were quite annoyed to hear about the clocks. But first of all, I think that's wonderful, because we're at the beginning of the energy revolution. We've been using electricity like this the same way for the last 100 years, right? Just taking one kind of electricity from a socket in the corner of the room at 240 volts. All right, okay. Let's start with question number 2 first. Question number 3 there. Tell us the story about the clock.
Okay, so the clocks that you have either in an oven or somewhere in the kitchen, if you plug it in the wall, then it gets the power from the network, obviously. And it doesn't use quartz as a reference for a second. It uses the frequency of the network of the energy. That means that if that frequency changes, then you have the problem that the reference to the minute is wrong. So each and every minute the clock is actually counting will be wrong due to the wrong frequency. And that was happening in March, and it ended up in being late up to 6 minutes.
Here, in Vienna.
In Vienna.
Here. It's true.
So it's just a reference of the frequency of the network instead of using quartz.
Yeah, but we get so used to it. I mean, people are shaking their heads and sort of going, I was at a company in Denmark, and they were taking their electricity. Sweden was buying electricity from Germany, and so it was going through some kind of connector in Denmark, whatever else, and a server failed in Flensburg, and Denmark didn't have electricity for 3 hours because of a software problem. Right, let's push on with this. What if we store energy? What about the efficiency there? Won't it increase our consumption in total?
Well, the thing is that we're talking mainly about renewable energy. And the difference between classic energy production and renewable energy, you cannot control when or how to generate renewable energy, like wind. You cannot say, okay, now it's going to be windy, I'm going to consume, now it's not going to be windy, I cannot consume. So our use cases are mainly based on renewable energy, where we have to store the energy when it's going to be created and generated, and not because the fact is we cannot affect the creation of energy when it happens. So we have to either consume it when we need it and it's generated, or we have to store it.
But isn't this, in terms of history, isn't this just a blip? In 100 years, won't people just look back and say, yeah, you know, the people are saying, yeah, but the wind isn't blowing, the sun isn't shining. Isn't that just an anomaly in the history of electricity?
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. Because, I mean, it will be solved, won't it?
Yeah, it will.
I mean, it's just a question of storage and transportation.
Exactly. The thing is that currently storage is very inefficient. We still have up to 96% efficiency of our batteries. That's already quite good. But transportation of energy costs a lot of efficiency as well, yeah. And that's one of the big problems right now.
I don't know, this hydrogen fuel or solid state batteries.
Solid state.
Solid state. Do you know about batteries?
How much is the hammer? Okay. So there was an evaluation because we had to insure the car for the transportation, and it was valued with 1 million euros. But
there is there's a YouTube channel, some fully charged YouTube channel where he talks about cars all the time. So right. He has shown a SUV that runs purely electric. And it's not about putting an electric motor into the Hummer. Schwarzenegger was making a point, yeah, in California. The point was that the future Hummer that runs on electric doesn't look like the Hummer they've built now.
Exactly.
Because that's built of steel and it's made with welding and stuff like that. So anyway, okay. Why not use certificates for identification of devices? How is the blockchain helping there?
So currently we are using for the commissioning of the devices certificates. But the next step of our idea is when we're going to have different vendors, when we're going to have different market leaders within one environment, the blockchain currently is the easiest and fastest way to solve that issue. Because everybody has their own certificates and then you have to exchange. And currently we are using certificates, but it will change in the future to blockchain.
Do you even distribute energy?
No, we don't.
You don't. He doesn't. So, sorry. Is it smarter to change batteries into hydrogen?
I had a very interesting discussion yesterday with someone from ÖMV. And actually he's in the future energy department, so he's one of the good guys. And
it's an oil company.
He said that currently the usage of hydrogen is not a valid business case. It doesn't work. Because actually it's far too expensive, storage and distribution. So currently the business case for hydrogen doesn't work. But he mentioned that if more batteries and more e-cars are going to be introduced into the market, hydrogen will be a valid competitor of regular energy.
So it's not either or.
It's going to be like both partners at the same.
Now let's take a couple more. The raw materials, that's quite a central question here. Do we know what the batteries of 10 years down the line, do we know what they're going to be made of?
No. And that's a very valid question that if you consider the price development of batteries, they're dropping right now because we're producing far more. But the moment we're going to have a resource issue, they're going to be more expensive again. And that's the fact, so we're waiting, well, we don't wait, we're already trying to develop a new way of battery that doesn't require these rare materials. And then we're going to have a solution that will be sustainable as well. Currently, the battery technology we have right now is just an in-between situation. But yeah, we are very, very afraid of this situation.
Does that mean we're going to move away from this idea that we have universal electricity in one style, i.e. 50 hertz, 220 volts?
That might change, but it will change like very far future. Because the distribution right now will utilize the existing network.
But a motor car is going to run on a completely different technology.
Yeah, but it has to, currently it will get electricity from the network.
Right, but if somebody has a boat or whatever, and they're running on 12 volts, they've started replacing all their lights with LEDs and all these clever little things that work on solar and all of this. At some point in time, that person's going to say, why don't I just put this in my house? It's much more efficient.
True. That will happen eventually.
Yeah.
And we are very well aware of it. And we're already creating business cases out of that by replacing a lot of old consumers with new ones. And that is something we have to consider as well. Yeah.
Okay, one more, two more. Pick a question.
The one I was waiting for, when will the Mavero be available? So we are already in pre-production, and we are talking right now Q4 this year. Yeah.
You heard it here. I just want to, okay, the next two, and then we're finished, right. What about the transmission question here? I don't, DC, AC, but what about long-distance wireless power transmission? Maybe you could take them both together.
Long-distance wireless power transmission in the observable future? I don't think so.
That sounds like we'd all get very hot.
Well, one of the issues is that, it's like a lobbying thing as well. So a lot of money is invested already in existing infrastructure. Yeah. And they try to optimize that first, and then there might be like a wireless power transmission, theoretically. Right now they're working on room wireless transmission. So you go into a room and then you have battery charged and everything else, but there are so many things we don't know right now that would you go to a room where you know everything will be charged automatically, including you?
I'd like to go to a room where I know where my bloody charger is.
Okay.
Because I've always got these cables there, and you have the wrong one. But okay. All right, I think we should wrap it up there. There'll be lots more questions, but hang around, and if there are any more, please give a warm round of applause to Peter Blaszek here from Kreisel. Very interesting.